Welcome, everyone, to FAQ Friday. It's the Career Happy Hour here on LinkedIn, Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook. We're broadcasting to all those different channels. There is a chat, and I'd appreciate it if you accessed it and left me any information, questions, comments, things you need help with. This is an opportunity for you to get some free career coaching. I'm Andrew Beach. I'm a teacher of self education. I help professionals like you communicate their value to find great opportunity faster. And that could be jobs, that could be freelance work, whatever that looks like. I help people communicate their value so they can find opportunity faster, whether you're working or not, or you're a business owner. Whatever that looks like for you, I can help you communicate more confidently your branding messages. That's why my handle is at Branding Dynamo. So look me up online at Branding Dynamo. If you could leave a chat, I think it's over on this side. With any questions, that would be great. A lot of topics, a lot of themes to dive into here today. But the main ones revolve around, well, it all started with a t-shirt. I ordered a t-shirt from a YouTube personality that I follow, and I appreciate the content he's putting out. And I encouraged him, and he offered a t-shirt. I said, great, I'm happy to invest in your t-shirt. You know, I can see, I don't know if this shows on the camera, but I am extra large. And not that I'm obese, maybe that would show on the body mass scales, body mass index, but I digress. I'm an XL. So when I ordered an XL, I thought I was getting an XL. Little did I know that the sizing was for unisex. So the XL I got was for both sexes. When I put it on, it fit like a medium, literally. An XL fit like a medium. That led me to believe about a couple things. You know, I thought there's two ways I could respond to this. One, I could get angry at the producer, be displeased, let him know my situation, demand a replacement. There's a lot of things I could do that's external from me to solve potentially an internal problem. And the reason that struck me is I kept getting this question this week about people that are working in jobs that there's something missing. They're not where they're supposed to be, or something changed, and they don't like what they have now. And I kept thinking about that T-shirt. That T-shirt didn't fit me, so I had two responses. One, I could put on a different shirt, or two, I could change myself. I could lose some weight so I could fit inside the shirt. So there's two choices to every situation, probably more. There's probably more choices, but there is a decision to make. By that I mean that if you're working in a place where you're not getting what you want, there's two choices. One, you can demand what you want, advocate for what you want, be an ambassador for what you want within your organization so that you get what you want. Hopefully, that's good not only for you, but for the organization and for your future and for everyone else. A win win situation. The alternative, second, is to put on a new t shirt, get a new job, right? Look at the marketplace, see what the market can bear. There is, either way, there is friction to change. It's hard. Making change is hard. So if you've been in an organization, and I've seen this week, one person I talked to, a potential client, same company, 36 years. Turned out the founder had acquired cancer, had gotten cancer. Terrible story. They closed the company because the founder or the lead person got cancer. 36 years, great company, absolutely happy, satisfied. She's now looking for work. She finds work and gets with a company that isn't as good as what she had before. And so she's looking again. And, you know, there's choices to make. You can either advocate within that company, negotiate, advocate, try to find a way to make it better where you're at, in the hopes that you're not going to get the same situation at the next company. Often we overlook the value, the virtue of the company and the situation we have now without considering what we want to change or what we miss, or what is missing. So don't ignore that you are in control of the process. You can advocate for yourself. And yes, you should be prepared for the consequence of advocating. Now, consequence often is considered negative. One of the consequences that could come out of advocating for yourself is a raise, a bonus, additional responsibility, a promotion. There's a lot of advocating that goes on that could be positive for you. The flip side of that is if you're advocating for yourself, and even if you do your best, there is the possibility in most states at will employment. You could be looking for work. So be prepared for any consequence. So that's another topic for another day. But the idea here is you have a couple of choices and determine what you stand for. That's evidenced by your brand. The professional branding title that I'm talking about here, this particular session, there's things I'm sharing with you. If you have any coaching questions, certainly leave them in the chat. Happy to answer. If you're just joining us, in fact, let us know in the chat where you're joining from and what the temperature is where you're at. I understand there's heat waves all over the country, all over the world, actually. So the idea here is if there's something that you stand for, that is your brand. It's evidenced in your brand. So what is it you stand for? What is it you're willing to do to overcome the friction of change to get what it is you really want? And often that friction can be, not always, but can be less if you stay at the company you're in and be an agent for change. The only situations I've seen recently, at least, where that wasn't a possibility is when it started at the top. So if the person at the top is there and has been there and is a founder and it doesn't appear, at least on the surface, that any change is coming soon, then you have your answer. However, that's not most organizations. Most people feel that they're trapped by a single person or a leader that they don't control, and yet they never look around the organization to find something better. So it could be that within your organization, depending on the size, you could just walk down to the next department and you probably have a willing ear and an offer or an opportunity. So take a look at that. Try to develop your brand, advocate your brand inside your current company, and that actually would be a good strategy if you're not in the job or you're underemployed right now. That if you build that brand and develop that strategy and do internal networking, that you're likely to find opportunities that you didn't expect even existed. Now, in the event that outside the company is looking like a lot better, easier, less friction than inside the company in terms of a change, same rules apply. Develop a brand, identify the target companies and people, and then go and have those conversations of strategic value. So many people that I talk to position themselves as a job title, and that can work against you. So yes, you may be seeking a job or even a job title, but that's not your brand. Everybody is looking for that job title. Again, if there's 10,000 people after that same job title, then how could that possibly be your brand? It can't. It's impossible. That means you're just a commodity. I don't think anybody here wants to be a commodity, and I would encourage you, focus on not being a commodity. Encourage you to look at opportunities to differentiate yourself, meaning what makes you different than others? What do you enjoy doing in your domain? What is it that if you could just pick one thing in your domain that you could do every day, all day long, what would that be? That's probably related to your brand. And there's a feeling that comes with that. Anytime you do this branding exercise, it should come from your heart. If it comes from your heart, it doesn't require emotion or enthusiasm or energy. It's already in there. Look inward and look at your heart. So, and then the other side of this is you need to be aware of what you do differently and then start using that language all the time. Make that part of your identity. So if I really love helping people identify their unique value and communicate that to the marketplace so that they can find great jobs fast, that's part of who I am. So I use that language all the time. Do you want to find jobs fast? So I turn that around. Do you want to find a job really fast? Yes, I do. Okay. And then we run through the process. So running through a process, looking at that from that perspective, take that into consideration. So I would encourage you take a look at what's out there, what's available, and consider everybody as an opportunity to learn, grow, contribute, move forward in your process. Okay. So that brings us to the next thing on the agenda here today. It's actually a LinkedIn tip. And occasionally, if you go to my YouTube channel, you see a handful of LinkedIn tutorials. I know those have been helpful to people. So if you have any questions about LinkedIn and how to use it, please, by all means, just ask a question down below. I'm happy to offer that. I might even build a tutorial to help you understand how to use that. I consider that, yes, I might be skilled at LinkedIn and I understand the platform pretty well, but that's not something that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about its usage, yes, but not for my profile or anything for me. It's the opportunity to meet other people. So the one thing I noticed on a lot of profiles is there isn't a logo next to the company name. And the funny thing about LinkedIn, and many people do not know this, is that when you type your company name in there, you can put any text you want. You don't have to use the company's name specifically as it's posted on LinkedIn. And that can work against you. The flip side of that is I would encourage everybody, if you work for General Motors, type in GM or General Motors, and there should be in the dropdown the actual logo of the company that you worked for next to its name. Click on that logo. Make sure it's appearing on your profile. It adds a couple of things. One, it adds validity. I actually worked for an organization that has a presence on LinkedIn. Therefore, I, as a viewer of your profile, have a higher, consideration, right? A higher value, a higher validation of your skills because you worked at the actual company. Now, if I go there and I see General Motors in low caps, or GM Chevy, or GM, so just a series of words that just don't make any sense, then I'm wondering, what company is that? Did you work for GM as a contractor? Was this a different company? So there's confusion. What we don't want somebody to do when they come to our profile is be confused about the value we bring to the table, the companies we worked for, etc. Be sure that you select your university, your company, anything that has a logo next to it. Select that when you're doing entries in terms of experience on LinkedIn. So that's just kind of a tidbit, a little LinkedIn tip, because I saw that a lot this week. And so perhaps weekly we'll have just a little LinkedIn tip of the week. Now, on the flip side, I was doing some interview prep for a couple of folks this week, and it felt like the same question kept coming up over and over. In fact, it was actually posed to me by a potential coaching client, and that was, who have you helped do coaching in this way before in my domain? Okay, so in this case, I think it was academia, right? Who have you helped in academia do X before? And, it's so funny when I get those kind of questions, because it plays into a bias. And I know we're all biased, and I have to recognize that and make adjustments. And so I said something that might not have been answering the question directly, but I thought about it afterwards, and I think I might change it up a little bit. And that is the same advice that I give to my coaching clients when they're interviewing, is the same advice I myself should take. And so this is a learning experience for me as well. And honestly, the bias that we're dealing with here is that somehow that this person, because they know my industry, know how to coach me through this process. And I could say that that's a fallacy, or that's a half-truth. I could be in opposition to that, but truthfully, it's an objection. It's not a condition for employment. What they're saying is, how do I know that you have the experience to help me? I think what you're asking me is a great phrase that you can use in an interview. And I should have used that today. And I didn't. So we were having a good conversation. That question came up. And I think maybe I thought the conversation was going good enough that maybe it wouldn't come up, but I should have known better. So that another learning for those of you that are interviewing for jobs or potential opportunities is, I think what you're asking me That's a very valuable thing. So in this case, I could have said, I think what you're asking me is, um, do I have the ability to help you get where you want to go? Do I have the coaching experience to help you get where you want to go? Yeah, that's what I'm asking you. Or no, I really want to know, do you have references in this space? So really you get more clear on what they're asking. It's okay when you're in an interview to ask more questions. Ask more questions. Don't think that the person across from you is the one that's in control. It's a dialogue. Yes, they have the job, and yes, you want to impress them, but that doesn't mean you can't ask yourself, them, some questions. Like, I think what you're asking me is. And so, whatever the question is behind the question is what you would say. And make sure that you're asking that in a way that it actually leads to a question that you have an answer for, that you've practiced. So that's the second part of this. Is I should have, clarified what the question was that was being asked. Was it really that she wanted somebody in academia, or was it just confidence that I could actually help her get what she wants? Okay. So the second part of that was have a story. Have a story that relates to what they're asking, maybe in the same domain. So have I worked with people in academia? The answer to that question was yes. The second part of that question is she had a very specific area within academia that she wanted to know if I had experience. And for that question, it was a no. I mean, if it was a yes, no, check the box binary question like we get from HR during the recruitment screening process, then I would have been out of that process. Okay. So what I said to her, yes, I've worked with people in academia and I can look through my list and give you some names. Let me ask you this. And so I went down a different pathway. And that was, I think you would be hard pressed to find somebody with that very specific experience that had done that specific thing more than once, okay, with success. And that's why she was probably talking to me, is because it's very difficult to find somebody that niche in that, I would say, small of a market, nationally speaking, in the United States, that I don't think she would have been successful in finding that. So what I suggested is I've coached over 2,000 people. There probably isn't something I haven't seen before, but this could be a first. And I think really there's a process behind what makes my system, what I teach, what I coach, repeatable, regardless of the industry. The process is essentially the same. And so that's how I approached it. But what I should have done is use a story. Hey, let me give you an example. Is it okay? Let's do it this way. Is it okay if I give you an example of where I've done this before with someone similar to you? Okay, now I didn't say exactly the same. I said similar, right? And so that's where I could have gone into a coaching scenario with a real client in academia without disclosing their information, their private information. And that would have been a much better process. Would have been a much better process for me. Somehow, though, because I know that industry, what they're assuming is, or if somebody knew that industry, excuse me, that they would trust them more because they know that industry. And so that's a value we can use to our benefit, is that when we are known commodity with the interviewer or people across the table, you have increased understanding of them. You can get that by asking questions. Tell me more about that. How does that work for you? What changes would you make in the ideal world? What would this look like? Well, what does an ideal candidate look like? What areas are you seeing the most growth? How would you describe skills that are in high demand and low supply? That's where you have an opportunity to make a difference in the interview process, whether that's, for me with my coaching clients, or you with a job interview or trying to get a promotion, is ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. Formulate those questions in advance so you don't have any surprises coming up, or you run out of questions. That's even worse. So interviews are a lot the same as, what I went through this week with that. So let's hop over to the chat, see if we got any messages here. I don't see any in YouTube. Let me check over in, pardon me. Let me check the old LinkedIn, see if there's anything going on there. If you have any questions, just leave them in the chat. Even if you don't put them in today, I will look at them. Use the hashtag RedQuorama. I think that's on the screen if you don't see it. Hashtag RedQuorama. It just is an off, I know it's off the wall, but it allows me to search that hashtag and actually find your questions. So if you have any questions at all, use that hashtag. I follow that hashtag on LinkedIn and also on the different platforms, including YouTube. So I would encourage you, leave your questions. Allow me to know what questions you have for me, and I'm happy to answer. And so just to leave you a couple things. One, there's a podcast that I have. It's called Job Seekers Radio. Do it with my great friend Scott Picard. We had an episode just come out this last week called 9 Things Not to Do on LinkedIn. And so I'll leave the link to that, link to the podcast in the show notes. And then this next week, we have an episode coming out. I think it's an interesting title based on the conversation today, of course. And that is job blues. You know, what happens when you've lost that loving feeling for your employer? What do you do with that? How do you approach that? What steps can you take to resolve that? And I encourage you to take a look at the podcast as an additional way for you to increase your learning and level up your job search, whether that's a promotion or outside the company or what have you. If you're unemployed, totally understand. I got a bunch of free resources down in the show notes here on YouTube or even on my LinkedIn page. So I hope you have a great weekend. Stay cool and safe out there. And I appreciate you, and I hope you find everything you're looking for in a short period of time. Take care, everybody.